Guys, we are here to recap the single greatest episode in the history of Survivor. Do or Die, season 41, episode 11. Gideon, did it live up to the hype or did it surpass it?
Well, Adam, it was circulating around social media that Jeff Probst had apparently told a family member or a close friend or somebody else that this was going to be the greatest episode of Survivor of all time. And I got to tell you, it was not at all. But that's okay. Yeah, no, I did
We
not
don't know
live
if
up
that
to
was
the.
real. We don't know. We don't know if
Yeah,
that was.
I highly doubt that was real. I don't know what was so special about the episode, anything special about the episode that could make it the greatest, what quote unquote, non-finale episode of all time.
Yes. And of course, we're referring to the episode as far as like Survivor, as far as the gameplay, as far as was there a big move? Was there an iconic moment as far as, again, the gameplay? Was there a huge, there was a huge twist, but the twist kind of sucks. But none of that
Right.
happens. The episode was important. I mean, of course, referring to the tribal council, which ended up being half, if not more than half, of the entire episode. Of course, it was an important conversation.
Of
I was kind
course,
of
but
waiting
yeah,
for this conversation. I felt like it was coming all season, and it
right.
happened tonight. Sort of was sparked with the fallout of Shan being voted out. Was sort of what sparked the whole thing. And the falling of the Power 4 alliance, which of course was an all black alliance that didn't make it to the final four. So it was an important episode in that it was a conversation that we were sort of waiting for all season, and it really wasn't a debate or an argument. It seemed like everyone was on the same page, even someone like Heather, who you could tell doesn't have these sort of conversations or hasn't been exposed to. Even she chimed in and said she was, kind of happy they had that moment. But as far as Survivor gameplay, there was nothing special about this episode. It was clearly the worst post merge episode, as far as there was no big move, there was no power move, there was no flashy moves, there was no alliances being crippled, there was no backstabbing, there was nothing. It was a pretty straightforward episode as far as gameplay. Speaking of, it's sort of all being sparked with Chantel being voted out. We really didn't touch on that last episode. Me and Drew, who filled in for you while you were turkey goblin. Speaking of which, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was great, spending time with my girlfriend's family in New Jersey. I didn't exactly have the time to go back home to Tennessee. But it was still good to be around some sort of family. So yeah.
Right.
Watching the Cowboys, it was great.
Your main true family is here on the Reality Pop Network, and I just want you to know that.
Well, of course, thank you. Of course, this is my real family, Reality Pop.
Yeah. Yes. Chantel's comments when she got voted up. I know we're now going back 2 episodes, but kind of wanted to touch on it real quick. What were your thoughts when she kind of said Ricard voting for you to win $1 million and calling Deshawn, what did she call him? A snake?
A snake. Calling Deshawn a snake.
Yes.
Ironic coming from Chantel, who has played a snaky game.
Yes.
I thought it would have had more weight on Ricard, because usually when that's like painting the target on Ricard's back.
Yeah, maybe that was the point.
So I was surprised. Yeah, I was surprised Ricard took no flack and Deshawn got all the flack. You have to be snaky in Survivor. When's the last person who has won that has been snaky? Freaking Tom?
Natalie White.
Yeah, exactly. In this new school era of Survivor, you have to be a snake. Like, what? I don't know about you, but I mean, if I was on the show, I would embrace that.
Right. Yes. Interesting that she would say that. Again, unless the whole point was to paint a target on Ricard and not on Deshawn, because calling someone a snake, it's like, oh, okay, now he's exposed. He's not as much of a threat. Saying I'm going to vote for
Right.
you to win $1 million. What happened this episode? Damn near every single contestant on this episode said Ricard is probably the biggest threat to win. So maybe that was her point. I don't think it was.
It's true, but they're also like, they didn't vote him out.
Right. Right.
And it seemed like Deshawn was catching a lot of heat. Maybe he would have gone home over Ricard. We don't know because of this twist that we're going to talk about, but
right. Well, and not only did they not target Ricard, but he sort of in one fell swoop and one big move by voting out Chantel sort of shifted himself as being the bottom 5 in the Power Alliance to now being pretty much the number 1 in a new Power Alliance, because now Danny, Liana, and Deshawn went from power in the Power Alliance to the bottom 3. And Ricard is now in this alliance with Heather, Erica, and Xander.
Right. Ricard, I feel like Ricard probably definitely sniffed out that he was on the bottom of that Power 5 alliance, and he might have been unaware of the 4 alliance of all black people. So I do think it was a good move for him to get to the top. Was it too early? I don't know. I guess we'll see how it turns out. There's no way that we can gauge it, even though his threat level now. When the episode opened and Ricard's getting the first confessional and he had kind of like this heroic music playing in the background, it was like, this is exactly what people were saying on social media, is that Ricard's going to take on Chantel's edit now. And, now Ricard's the top dog. Right. Even though at the beginning people were like, well, Ricard's just riding coattails, even though he wasn't. But now Ricard is this power player. I don't know. It's been interesting to see the switch.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people are like, why did he vote out Chantel? It was his number 1 ally. But look, he went from being number 5 on the totem pole to now probably being number 1. Because really the only power players are him and Xander. And I feel like most people want I feel like he has more say and more power than maybe tied with Xander. It's kind of tough who has the most power right now, because even though I feel like though Ricard has more social capital than Xander obviously has at least at the moment the extra vote. I know he uses it at the tribal council, but he also has an idol, so maybe that balances them out. But regardless, Ricard voting out his number 1 ally made him go from number 5 to number 1. So looking back now, it seems like as of now, getting rid of Chantel was the right move.
I mean, but personally, as of this episode, if you told me, Gideon, if you could take the place of anybody's game, like, and take their position, it wouldn't be Ricard. It would probably be Xander.
Yeah.
I think Xander's in prime position right now with a big threat. In a good alliance, but with a bigger threat than you. People are more fixated on Ricard than they are Xander. And then all you are is if you think about it, all you are is an individual immunity win away from the Final 4 and to make fire if you're Xander. Because he can he wins individual immunity, then he plays his idol no matter what at 5. And then they can't vote him out at 4. He has to build fire. Now we don't know. We haven't seen any indication. The only thing we knew about Castaways and Fire is that Nasir was good at it. So now that he's gone, we're like, we don't see who's making the fire, stuff like that. But I mean, I think
we also don't know if there is going to be one, because no one's mentioned it the whole season.
It's probably going to happen. I feel like if there was a change to the Final 4 fire making, Jeff probably would have mentioned it at the beginning. But who knows? I'm just a podcaster. Yeah, but I do think Xander's in prime position, and I do think he has social capital, not as much as Ricard, but people are talking to him, and as we see in the next episode preview, he's gonna get some deals cut to him.
Yeah. Well, another interesting thing that happened before the challenge is Liana was very shocked and surprised that they voted out Chantel. And I feel like she reacted as if she was shocked, but it was more anger than it was shock because they literally told her that was going to happen. I mean, we saw an entire moment on the beach where Danny and Deshawn went to Liana and said, we're gunning for
Ricard.
Yeah. Well, and then Ricard won immunity and they said, we're gunning for Chantel. You know?
Okay.
This was, I'm talking about the previous episode.
Right.
Yeah. They literally said we're voting out Chantel. And Liana didn't go along with it, but she also wasn't like, that's stupid. That's the worst move ever. At least we didn't see that. So her shock in this episode was a little shocking to me because they literally told her that they were going to do it. And then she freaked out. I feel like the freak out was more like,
I think the freak out was more like, wow, like you really turned on this like Power 4 alliance we had, all that stuff.
It was like Jeff Goldblum when he first goes to Jurassic Park and there's that moment where he's just like, you crazy son of a bitch, you did it. You know, like she knew it was going to happen, but it was like actually seeing it is different than, you know, seeing it actually play out is different than just knowing it's going to play out. So, yeah, it's interesting because it's like, the only other thing I can think of is were there just so many plans circulating that they just showed us the most interesting one. I don't know. Well, maybe we'll have to ask. We'll put that on our questions board. Was just like how many different plans. It kind of depends on season per season because some seasons, based on what we've heard from survivors, for most of the votes, there's one plan and that's the plan. Other survivors on different seasons will be like, there's a million different plans constantly changing. It really depends on the season. So we haven't obviously haven't talked to anyone from this season. We will in exit interviews after the season, but also glad that we finally got on a personal level with Danny this episode, which made me think I texted you during the episode. I thought that was a clear indication that he's going home because this happens at least once per season. Someone who has been a little bit in the background all of a sudden gets, you know, an episode where they're at the forefronts and it's sad. They'll tell an emotional story, get people on their side, and then they'll be cut at the end of the episode. So I was like, oh shit, Danny's
it already happened to JD. So
yeah. And then kind of with Chantel, I mean, she kind of had that personal episode. She didn't get voted off till like the next week, so we kind of got like a fake out episode. But yeah, so I'm glad we kind of got on a personal level with Danny because I feel like not to downplay other people, but I feel like Danny might have the most or one of the most like interesting lives or backstories, and that's before I even knew all the stuff with his dad. So I'm glad that we finally got like our personal.
I mean, he's literally out there lying to them about what he does for a career, you know?
Right, because they don't know.
There's kind of an underrated storyline here that like it's been 20 days. I don't even think Deshawn knows that Danny was on the Cowboys.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, we definitely haven't seen him talk about it with Deshawn, but no, I do like this whole new school editing style that has to be very influenced from Australian Survivor. I don't see how it's not, where we get to see their personal lives. We even saw pictures. They even showed us pictures. The Survivor's been so only show stuff on the island. In this episode, they're like giving us pictures and videos and clips.
That's an aspect of Australian Survivor I really like. Now, granted, those Australian Survivor episodes are way longer.
Yes.
But you know, I still like it. I wish Survivor episodes were that long.
All right, let's talk about the twist. What'd you think? And what would you have done if you were in this position?
Okay, what did I think?
Yeah.
I think it wasn't as bad as everybody was making it out to be. Like we were hearing chatter that it was going to be the worst twist of all time, worse than when they got to kick out somebody on whatever it was, blood versus water. Here's the funny thing. I actually called what this challenge. Here's the funny thing. I called to my girlfriend what this challenge would be, except I thought it would be harsher. What I told my girlfriend, my prediction, of course, I couldn't say it to you because I wasn't on the podcast, but I said, I think it's going to be whoever's out of the challenge first is voted out. That's what I said. I said that I think it's going to be like that bad, right? Of course, I misjudged some parts, like you could participate or not participate.
Right.
But so it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I still think it was unnecessary. I guess that's the word I would use to sum up this twist. Unnecessary. Now, would I have done it? No, I would have sat out because the way they set it up is that like only the strong competitors are going to compete, which puts your chances even higher of you going out first. Like we saw, like everybody did pretty good besides Deshawn. Like everybody there, like lasted pretty long. I mean, they got to literally 4 people picked up the max amount of blocks.
Right.
Now Erica dropped, but so that was crazy to me. I do feel like I'm not saying Survivor's scripted at all, but I do feel like production does push certain things to happen. And the whole vibe I was getting from the entire episode is that there's no way Deshawn's going to go home from this. Like the editing is just not showing that at all. Like it seems like everybody's preparing for this vote out, and it's just going to be so anticlimactic if nothing happens. This whole dilemma of Liana or Ricard. I feel like if Deshawn went out, they wouldn't show that. Also, I feel like production realizes that people would be really pissed off if Deshawn went home. So, I'm not saying it's scripted, guys. I just want to say that. But I am saying I do feel like production did push for Deshawn to not get voted out. Don't ask me how. But I don't think it was in production's plans for anybody to go home from that twist.
Yeah. No, we'll definitely talk about the vote out later. I wanted to get to some math. We're going to talk about some math here. So shout out to Tommy Smokes from Barstool Sports,
our boy,
and his channel, Snuffin' Torches, his podcast. They took the time and did the math. I'm not going to read because it's a whole breakdown, it's a whole equation. But if you want the full mathematical breakdown, go to what's his at Tom Scabelli. But essentially, if you chose to participate in the challenge, it gave you a 30% chance of immunity and a 10% chance of going home. If you chose to sit out, one person wins immunity, which means there's a 1 in 6 chance you're the person voted out, which is 16.7. But there's also the added 50% chance that the person who does the do or die twist is going home, thus ensuring your safety. I know it was 33, but eventually it was 50-50 because he had the chance to choose one or the other. So sitting out ends up coming to an 8.3% chance you're going home, compared to 50 or opposed 16.7 if you would have played. So long story short, if you sat out, there was an 8.7% chance you go home. If you played, there was a 16.7% chance you got home. So mathematically, if you sat out, you were half as likely to go home. Cue the clap.
It would have been interesting if nobody participated and you just had a tribal where no one was immune.
It also would have been interesting if Danny would have given Deshawn his immunity. Would that even be possible?
No. Okay. No way they would allow that. There's no way.
What's also interesting, and I didn't know this until I talked to, and I'm not going to say who because they haven't told me if I'm allowed to say this. I won't say their name, but hopefully we don't have to edit this out later, but I'll just go ahead and throw it out.
That's never happened before. We've never had to edit anything out of a podcast.
That that a season 41 contestant spilled the beans onto us privately. But I don't think this is a big deal to say this. The survivors, according to blah, 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 didn't know the odds at tribal council, meaning they didn't know it was going to be a 1-3. I thought it was going to be a 50-50. To me, that makes sense.
Same, yeah.
So not only did they not know the odds, but they asked Jeff repeatedly, please, can you tell us you didn't see this on TV, but they said, please, can you tell us what the chances are before we make the decision to sit out or not? And Jeff just wasn't budging. So that's our insider knowledge. Okay. We're the insiders right here. They didn't know that. They didn't know what the odds were. My take, the twist sucked. I think it was terrible. I think it was the worst twist of the game, minus Liana's, even though Liana's advantage ended up leading to a pretty great moment. This didn't lead up to a great moment. I don't think Deshawn not getting good enough. I think it was anticlimactic. I think it would have been more anticlimactic if he had gone home. So I'm glad he didn't go home, because I really want to see. I mean, I really want to see a Deshawn, Xander, and Ricard final three, because I think that'll be the best final three ever.
Oh yeah, best that I highly doubt that's gonna happen, because everybody and their mother wants to take Heather home. But that would be interesting. I was working out possible final threes in my head while I was laying in bed last night trying to go to bed. And if you get to a point where the final four is Ricard, Xander, Deshawn, they all make it to the end, and you have somebody like Heather along with you in the final four. If Deshawn wins, who's probably as of right now, probably the least powerful of the power three guys, if you're Deshawn, I would argue that you do a strategy that we haven't seen on Survivor really with a final three, but is the best chance for it to work, which is vote out Heather and split the votes among the two most powerful people. So, I mean, that is a possibility there. Calling it right now, that's happening. All right.
Another thing, too, is before this episode, I don't think Deshawn is actually in as much as a chance to win as the audience sees it. Like, the audience, he's like a high favorite, but he really hasn't done that many big moves. I mean, don't get me wrong, Deshawn is him and Ricard are like my two, and Xander are like my three favorites. I want to see them all come back. Love Deshawn, but as far as moves that we've seen, we really haven't seen him done that many moves.
Well, his moves have been putting together alliances, things that haven't been seen to the jury. Well, not aren't public moves like Ricard made yesterday. Ricard yesterday, that was the first big move post merge.
Well, that's the thing is
move.
Deshawn wanted Chantel gone. You could all the scenes about they wanted the all black final four. That was definitely something Deshawn was thinking, but it was clear that he wanted Shan gone because he saw her as a major threat in his way, probably the biggest. Right. But it was Ricard who ended up pulling, at least from what we saw, it was Ricard who pulled the trigger on Chantel. So it was Deshawn thinks of these big moves, but it seems like someone else always pulls the trigger. If there's one moment or move that has helped Deshawn's stock to win the game the most, it was probably his speech at, I guess you could call it, at Tribal Council today. That might be the single biggest thing in his resume, and it's not really a move, as so it's like a jury play. And I don't want to say that obviously there's more. Deshawn didn't say all of his words.
But Deshawn, well, right, but you can't deny there wasn't a little bit of jury pandering going on there.
By default.
By default, of course, it is by definition jury pandering when you're apologizing to a member of the jury and you're not even at the final tribal council yet. Yeah, I don't doubt that Deshawn didn't feel bad. I don't. He cried. Yeah, of course. You know, I am an actor. I can cry on command. Yeah, but you know,
Deshawn's not.
He's Deshawn's not, so I'll believe him.
Well, then
As far as
let's
we
see
know.
it.
No.
I thought you said you could cry on command. Let's see it.
You got to give me a few minutes, and then that would take up too much time on the podcast.
I
can't cry. You got to let me. You got to give me a few minutes, man.
All right. Well, I'll talk for a few minutes. You build it up.
No, I'm good. I can't cry while talking about Survivor.
Well, for the people listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, which, by the way, we're on all three. The link to all three is in the description. Check those out if you don't want to watch us and you can only listen to us. Like if you're on a car ride, a train ride, or a plane ride, or a boat ride. For all those people, I know you can't see, but Gideon is not crying.
Right.
Just wanted to say real quick, I also would have sat out. And that's before all the odds. Would have been really cool to see Voce in that situation, just like breaking down all the
33.37% chance of going home.
Yeah. Yes.
I miss Voce, man. This season has a gaping hole, a gaping Voce-sized hole. Yeah. I can't stand it. But Ricard was wearing a shirt today, so in a way, Voce was with us all.
Right, and Chantel was wearing it last episode.
Right, so Voce still lives on.
Yeah, he would have been a great jury member too.
My goodness, he would have been a great everything. I was such a Voce stan, and they just ripped him from me. You know what? That this is 10 episodes ago. I can't get on my high horse now about it. But,
other thing about the challenge, just real quick. If you would ask me who's the two least likely to sit out, I would have said who? Like who needed to win the most?
Who needed Liana?
Yeah.
And Heather.
And who were the two that ended up sitting out?
Liana and Heather, but that's smart because they suck at challenges.
Still,
they would have lasted longer than Deshawn. I'll believe that, but
I mean, I guess, I don't know. Yeah, Ricard with the overhands. Interesting. We'll have to add
actually, he was switching grips every round, so he went overhand, then underhand.
Then but I feel like he should have ended with under. No.
I don't know what he should have done because I've never done that challenge, and I've only competed in an online version of Survivor. I don't know the challenges.
Yeah. Danley finally wins immunity. I can't believe it took one of the seemingly most athletically gifted players in the show's history this long to win. But obviously, of his athletic ability, probably strength and agility are probably the two most, and none of the individual immunities thus far have really been either.
These have been balance endurance challenges which favor Ricard, the dancer, the most. If you guys don't know, Ricard's been in national tours for musicals as a dancer. He's been a part of some DCI performances as a dancer. I'm a dancer as well, and I know how freaking difficult that crap is to stand there. As a dancer, you have to stand in a certain position and hold yourself in a certain way for so long.
Yeah,
I would have. If you would have asked me, all these endurance challenges would have favored Ricard. So that I thought Ricard would win this one again since it was another endurance one. But there was a bit of strength involved, I guess. So even though football is sprinting for 7 seconds and then holding hands, I will give it to Danny. It was a great performance.
Yeah, no, I can relate. I'm a dancer as well. Many a college party, I busted out the Dougie and laid down the law in that realm. Yes. Okay. The one interesting thing that happened in the very brief moments between the challenge and tribal council, which was very brief. I almost forgot there was anything till I looked at my notes on my phone. Was Danny tries to find because it's 3-on-4. It's 3-on-4, which is could be worse, right? It could be 4-on-2,
Right.
could be 5-on-1.
Right.
All they need is one person to flip. The person who is the worst player, and no offense, but probably the person who's or maybe the most gullible, or the least social awareness of the game is Heather. So they could have gone after her. Then you have Erica, who's probably the one who wants to make a big move the most. But instead, the person they go after is Xander, who Danny has never worked with, who is even though this is his first challenge win, someone he's always competing against, someone who's been on a different boat with him almost every episode, if not every one. And Xander is clearly using Ricard as a threat meat shield. So the one person who he's the least likely, in my opinion, to get to flip on Ricard is Xander. But instead he chose Xander to to go to get Ricard, and obviously that just wasn't the case. I can't do you have any ideas why?
No.
Why he went after, unless he also went after Erica and Heather, and those scenes were just boring and they just didn't show them. I have no clue why Danny decided Xander was going to be the one he was going to talk to, because he did when he had his meeting with Deshawn, he did say, I'm going to go talk to Xander. And Deshawn was like, all right, cool. If I was Deshawn, I would have been like, what? No,
Right.
why would you do that?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so Tribal Council, the thing is, like, I don't know if we're the most qualified to speak on the subject matter of Tribal Council,
What do you mean? I'm a pasty white guy who grew up in Tennessee. I'm the
right. Like we said at the beginning of the episode, I feel like if Jeff's tweet was real, it was probably that what they were referring to. It's something that has been like lightly touched on, sort of, obviously referring to like not only black representation. I know it was mainly obviously Chantel couldn't speak. If there was one time Jeff would have let the jury speak, it probably would have been this, but he obviously didn't. It was mainly Deshawn and Liana talking, which makes you think it was alluding to just black representation on the show. Obviously, it was more than just black representation. It's just
I mean, they were for the most part talking about black representation, but obviously the actual casting thing was having 50% people of color, and that includes people on the season that are still in the game, like Erica and Ricard.
Right. Yeah, so those two didn't really have as much to say, or at least the edit didn't show it. It was kind of all Liana or Deshawn person.
I mean, I don't think they were gonna. I didn't think they were gonna say anything because the conversation was mostly surrounding the Black Alliance of 4.
Right.
that Ricard and Erica were left out of, even though they are people of color. It was a Black Alliance, so
yes.
Yeah. But I am glad that they talked about it, because it was kind of like a big elephant in the room that like this change had happened with CBS and like wasn't touched on at all.
Yeah.
Like social media is erupting over it, even though they can't see social media live. Even though it was interesting that Liana was talking, being like, I know you guys are sitting at home probably like, why does Survivor have to get, political or whatever? It was almost like, she was seeing the future with people, some people that we even know, saying, oh, why does politics have to intertwine with Survivor? That's so stupid. I thought that was pretty funny. That, she was referring to those people.
Yeah, I mean, if it starts to affect the gameplay in a major way, like then I can understand the complaint.
Which it did. There was a Black Alliance and an alliance in the game based off that failed. It fell apart, and, especially after this last season of Big Brother, where there was a lot of drama with that too, with the Cookout Alliance, and what I did like about, compared to Big Brother, comparing Survivor to Big Brother with the Black Alliances is what Liana said, which is just like, we didn't come into this, just wanting to, a black person to win, she said something along those lines. Like, we didn't see each other as like just four black people just trying to get each other to the end. Like, we just came together as survivors with a common goal, and I liked her saying that. And
Right.
I look, even myself, I don't like it when things get, a little political or anything, but I was glad personally that all this was said, just because it was a big change to the
Yeah.
casting that was pushed by ex-survivors like Chatia and Davey. And, I'm glad that it was addressed. And I think Liana was a great person to address it. Kind of ironic that she's talking about all of this and then gets voted out,
Yeah.
5 minutes later, but still.
Right. But if she hadn't said all that, then it wouldn't have been the greatest episode of all time.
This episode was not the greatest of all time, but it was a good conversation, I suppose. I knew we were in for something when I looked at my phone and it was 8:35 and we were in Tribal Council. I was like,
Yeah.
what the heck?
Right. So Deshawn, we find out, only gets a 33% chance, which is complete bull. Should have been 50-50. But he survives.
Let's be honest, it was always going to be 100. Deshawn had no chance of going home. I believe that. I'll take that to the grave, man. Deshawn was not going home.
All right. Gideon also thinks the earth is flat. What I don't understand is,
no, I don't.
Why did they vote Liana? I've been meaning to get to this, why did they vote Liana? The only thing I can think of is that
because
she's a bigger challenge threat, but she hasn't come close in any challenges.
Bigger challenge threat compared to who?
To Deshawn. Well, I don't understand why they didn't.
Deshawn was immune.
What do you mean? Oh, he was immune?
Yeah. Did you not know that?
I did not know that.
Okay.
Well, because he got this. Wow, totally did not pick that up. I was writing notes the whole episode on my computer, and I must have been typing at every moment Jeff said that. So Deshawn,
whoever survived Do or Die would be immune, along with whoever won the challenge, and then they would vote.
Okay, totally did not know that. Well, I feel dumb. Now I totally get. So
that is why they went for Liana. It had to be Liana, or else the Alliance of Four would have cannibalized themselves.
So that's why Ricard said, "I hope Deshawn
dies,"
because if he,
which was hilarious.
Yeah. Okay. So it's all making sense now. Okay. So now it's Deshawn and Danny versus the four, and honestly, they can tease us all they want in the previews for next episode that, there's going to be a crack or something. But I just don't see.
When they put that crap in next episode on Survivor, I feel like the opposite is just going to happen.
I feel like there's no chance, unless it's like a double immunity win and Deshawn and Danny win, or they find an idol like we saw. I don't see any scenario that Deshawn or Danny could go home.
I think it's all in Xander's hands. Of course, we didn't talk about him playing the extra vote, which I thought was a good move. I thought it was the right time for Xander to play his extra vote because Erica was kind of in the middle, and that ensured that whoever went home would go home.
The only other reason I could see the Power Four potentially breaking up is Erica seemed like she was kind of on the edge, and Xander playing the extra vote obviously is him saying, I don't fully trust Erica, which he should now, but now Erica is like, he doesn't trust me. That's the only thing I can think of. I don't know when the last time Xander could have played the final vote or the extra vote. Maybe
if I was Xander, I would lie and say this was the last chance I had to play my extra vote. So that would be went ahead and played it. That would be a smart move.
Very smart.
I don't foresee Xander doing that, but if he does do that, we called it here on the Survivor Buffs. Don't forget it.
That would be a really, really smart move. Such like it's crazy how sometimes just telling someone one sentence worth of information, whether that information is true or not, can potentially win you or lose you the game. Because if he tells Erica that one sentence being a lie, that could keep Erica from flipping, which means that Deshawn and Danny go next, which means Xander potentially wins the fire making and then wins the game. Just saying, it's crazy how telling someone one sentence sometimes can win or lose you the game. Not saying Xander does win. If you ask the deep Survivor community online, then Erica is the winner, and that's not based on any spoilers or boot orders or leaks or anything, but the people in like the deep Survivor community that are all on Reddit and watch all the podcasts and everything are convinced that Erica is winning this season. Right. So they've like broken down confessional statistics and compared to previous winners, compared to like Erica's post-game Instagram accounts, compared to previous winners' post-game Instagram accounts. The Survivor, the deep Survivor community, it's probably like 1,000 or so, are convinced that Erica's winning. If Deshawn ends up winning, this episode was a perfect like not climax of his game, but like beginning of the climax. Because
rising action is what it would be called.
The start of rising. I'm a filmmaker, I know.
Are you? Do you know? You didn't even know that Liana went home because Deshawn was immune. So,
okay,
I don't trust you.
You also believe that the Earth is flat.
I don't believe that the Earth is flat. I just believe that production rigged it for Deshawn to not go home. I literally was on the couch and I looked at Livy and I was like, I was watching with my girlfriend and I said, okay.
Yeah.
Deshawn's not going to go home. Anyways.
So I took a hit in the fantasy game. But
let's be real here. Let's be real here, Brad.
But Liana had no chance of winning, even if she made final three, unless she pulled off some crazy Chris Underwood style finale. I don't see her winning against anyone except Heather, maybe Danny. But God, could you imagine if it would have been a Danny, Liana, Heather final three?
I would probably cry.
Right. Okay. So I feel like the winner's on my team.
Right. Yeah. The only chance I have is Deshawn.
Right. Right.
Which there's a chance.
Yeah, just like there's a chance the Earth is flat. Who would have been your MVP last week? Would have been Ricard?
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
That was 100%. Mine and Drew's. Who's your MVP this week?
Ooh, tough. But I'm gonna give it to Xander this week. Because he used his extra vote, I think, in a smart way. Yeah. He kept the alliance together, even though Erica was like kind of swaying away. We saw him having conversations. It's hard to not give it to Danny because he won immunity and had a great storyline arc this episode. Unfortunately, he's on the wrong side of the vote, and I can't give you player of the episode if you're on the wrong side of the numbers. So uneventful episode. But if I had to give it to somebody, it would probably be Xander.
Not a bad choice, but I think for the first time of the season, we are going to disagree on MVP. And I hate to sound like a broken record, but once again, I just think Ricard is playing a top-notch game. He follows up the biggest move of the season with playing backseat, still on top of the numbers, even though almost every single person this episode, including Xander, Heather, and Erica's 3 alliance members, every single person this episode, go back and rewatch it. Every person said that Ricard was the biggest threat to win, and he got 0 votes. Still remains a top dog in the Power 4.
He did not get 0 votes. He got 3.
What? Oh, I mean, okay. I don't know why I said 0 votes. He didn't go home. He didn't get any votes from the people who. I guess what I meant to say is he didn't get any votes from the people who would have likely flipped on him. It was obvious that Deshawn, Danny, and Liana were gunning for him, but Xander, Erica, and Heather also said that he was the biggest threat to win, and no one flipped on him. I guess that's what I meant to say.
Just to double down on my Xander player of the episode is he's way more aware than the beginning of the season was trying to make us think he was.
Right.
He was saying that he can't send Ricard home because, it's the classic Tony Vlachos argument to all the great players in season 40, which is, well, if you go and you're the biggest threat, or if I go and you're the biggest threat, then you're next. And, Xander has that mentality that he knows where the totem pole is. He knows that he's number 2 behind Ricard. Props to Ricard for getting there, but people are eventually going to gun for him,
Mm-hmm.
Now, if people gun for him at Final Four, good on him. But I feel like people are going to gun for him before that. They already have been gunning for him. It just haven't got the numbers for it yet. I love Xander's awareness on timing, right? And, I do feel like, we're going to see a Xander Ricard shootout, even though they're kind of a weird duo right now, which is pretty interesting to see.
Yeah.
But this was, prime awareness and positioning from Xander this episode. I love Ricard. Great episode for him again. But I just think that was my favorite part of the episode was Xander saying, I can't send Ricard home because if we send Ricard home, I'm, it's obvious. I'm the biggest threat now.
Right. Last question I'll ask, and then I'll give my answer too. Who are you? I'll make a 3-part question. If the season ended right now, who would win fan favorite? Second question, who are you personally rooting for to win? Not even consider if we didn't do the fantasy teams. And then 3, who do you think, if you had to put your money on someone to win, who would you think? And I'll go first if you want me to.
Okay, go first.
Okay. Fan favorite?
I feel like this is obvious.
That's funny because I think fan favorite's the hardest. Because I feel like the best candidates have been voted off, like JD and Nasir. I feel like fan favorite has to be Final 6, Final 7. So I'll say actually, wow, this is the hardest one. I thought this would be easier. I'll say Deshawn for fan favorite.
What?
Yeah.
I think it's obviously Xander, personally.
If it would go to a vote, it'd probably be Xander. Yeah, if it actually went to an online vote, because the people who would vote would probably be Xander fans. But if we're talking what fan favorite is now, where it's basically just Sia picking someone.
Well, if Sia had to pick somebody, it would be some sort of activist like Deshawn, congratulations. But, if we're talking about actual fans here,
Xander
people are pissed at Deshawn for turning on Shan. People are, not as pissed as Danny. Danny definitely gained fans' appreciation, but he's still been kind of invisible. Ricard pissed everybody off with the "come on in, guys" thing, and then
he'll never live there.
And then he's been living behind Shan up until a few episodes ago, where now everybody's starting to finally taking a liking to Ricard. Well deserved. For me,
I still think Deshawn.
For me, Heather's invisible. For me, it's Xander and then Erica.
For fan favorite, you think Erica better than Deshawn?
Right. I think Xander's on top just because he's playing a better game than Erica. But Erica also has a lot of stands out there. You're asking me who I think fan favorite is.
Yeah, but Eric over Deshawn. I mean, I will say this: Xander does have the most followers.
Xander's good looking. Xander is playing an underdog game. What?
Good looking. What's that criteria?
Well, that goes into it. It's the attractiveness bias.
Oh my gosh, Deshawn's not good looking.
Well, I mean, you know, he's good looking, but I mean, Xander's like pretty, you know. Oh gosh, I've completely gone off the rails here. I mean, why do you think poverty's so, you know? Why do you think people like poverty? Why do you think people like Amanda? Oh my gosh. Why do you think people like Boston Rob?
Because he's pretty.
He's pretty, exactly. You know, people like Xander's good looking. Right. He's playing an underdog game. People always root for an underdog. Come on, he wasn't able to vote at, you know, for like half of the episodes. Come on.
I will say this: Xander has gotten the biggest followers bump. Like Chantel, I think, has the most followers, and then, but she had like a ton to come in with because of her TikTok fame. But Xander went from like a couple hundred to like, I think he's got like 30,000 now, and Ricard is a close second. I think he has like high 20,000s. Sydney's up there too. Okay, who are you personally rooting for? Not Ricard. Not factoring in. Okay, I was gonna say not factoring in fantasy draft, but I guess if you're picking Ricard.
I mean, who am I personally rooting for? I hope Ricard wins. It would be a great win.
Right.
Would definitely be at least a freaking B tier winner if we had to tier rank the winners again. You know, if you play like this, I think he's played a great game so far. He's really taken control at the right time. You know, Chantel got too powerful too early, and Ricard, I feel like felt that. So, but he's been likable. I've loved Ricard's confessionals. I've loved Ricard's personality throughout it. I like that he stepped on some toes. He's my kind of guy. So, yeah, I'll go with Ricard.
And then who do you think, if you had to put your money on somebody, would it also be Ricard or someone else?
I think I'll put my money on Xander.
Wow.
Yeah, I think if you made me put money on somebody, I think Xander has the best. I think Xander's in the best position of the game right now.
Okay.
You know, because in my, you know, unpopular opinion, number one is not the best position.
Yes.
At final six.
Yeah. Me. Who am I rooting for? It's going to be Ricard. He was my winner pick before the game, and he's in a great position to win.
He was my winner pick too. I just wanted to be different from Adam.
Sure. Who would I put my money on? It's tough because now Ricard seems like is taking over the Devins type edit.
I know.
But like Deshawn, it doesn't seem like he has winner qualities as far as like the edit they're giving him. And Xander, it just feels like he's in the Power Alliance, but I don't think anybody wants to take him to the ends.
Right.
The only person I don't think anyone would want to take him to the end. I will throw out a curveball here, and I'm gonna say Deshawn wins. Put my money on someone.
Okay, that's interesting. I would have thought you said Ricard, but
because I think Danny goes home next week, and then I think that either Ricard or Xander goes in final five.
Because Erica and Heather are finally like, well, one of them's gotta go.
Right. And then final four will probably be
Fire.
If assuming it's Fire, I'll say unless he wins immunity, which is possible. In fact, it's likely Ricard will be, if he doesn't win, Ricard will be, no matter who wins, they will pick Ricard as one of the two to make Fire.
Probably.
If Deshawn pulls a Chris and wins Final Four immunity, pits himself against Ricard and wins, he will get every jury vote.
Right.
I don't think, as far as what we've seen from the edit, I don't think either are like fire pros. So if I had to put my money on it, I would pit Danny going home next week, or Danny going home next week. 5 being Xander, 4 being Ricard, and then Heather and Erica getting like no votes, or maybe Erica getting 1, and Deshawn winning. But I'm rooting for Ricard.
Yes,
But I also would love
rooting.
Deshawn to win because Deshawn is awesome.
Yeah,
I'd also love Xander to win.
I'm happy with either one.
Right.
Either one.
Okay, I'm gonna finish up this episode with a couple announcements. I'm gonna run through them quick. As I said, we are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. The links to all 3 in the description. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because we have some really big things coming up, including next week we will have a special guest. It'll be Libby from Survivor Ghost Island, and then we have at least one very special guest for the finale recap, if not potentially even 2 very special guests. We are going to do, after the season, we're going to do a season retrospective with Coach Drew and Chris, potentially Riley, maybe some others from the Reality Pop team. We're going to have another Survivor Superfan roundtable. We're going to have 5, at least we're hoping for 5 off-season interviews, including Jonathan Penner, Coach from Token Sheens, and who's the other one we have locked? Andrew Savage as well. We're going to do exit interviews with at least half the cast. We're going to try, I think we have 11 locked in exit interviews. Don't only subscribe, you can also be a member, where you get a free entry into a raffle to win this, a free merge buff. You get to sit in on interviews that we do with exit interviews. Like when we're going to interview Ricard, you actually get to sit in on that interview. You won't be on the stream, but you'll be able to sit in, maybe say hi, ask a question. You can only do that if you become a member. You also get early access to interviews. Go ahead and go to our channel, and you can, right next to subscribe, it'll say join. Hit join to become a member. There's bunch of other stuff that you get by being a member, but it'll list it all there for you. Last thing, big announcement about the future of Survivor buffs. Gideon, do you want to say it, or should I say
it? You say it, since you're like the CEO of Reality Pop.
Starting after the end of this season, Survivor buffs, me and Gideon, although we will still very much be a part of Reality Pop and the Reality Pop Network, we will actually be moving to our own separate YouTube channel. So again, we'll still be part. If you're a member of member of with all the interviews, get sit-ins, entry into the raffle for buffs, all of that will still happen with our channel. You'll get access to both channels, but Survivor Buffs will be on its own separate YouTube channels. But again, still very much part of the network. We're still going to work with Coach Drew. We're still going to work with Survivor Worldwide, with the Challenge Insiders. All of that still be together, but we will be on our own separate channel. So we'll announce that. The channel will probably launch next week, and starting with all of our exit interviews for season 41 will be on the separate channel. So wanted to throw that announcement today. Again, check us out for the recap. Next week, we're going to have fan favorite Libby from Survivor Ghost Island, and super excited about our guests for the finale. Also, if you live anywhere in Eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or New York, or Maryland, check out, go to Wendell's Twitter page. He is hosting a Survivor 41 finale party. Me and Gideon will be there. Coach Drew will be there. A bunch of other guests that I have not been given permission to announce. Wendell will announce those guests, past contestants of the show, on his Twitter in the coming days. Okay. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, guys, pull up to that party, that finale party. Coach Drew, if you're of age, will buy you a shot for sure if you show up. So do that. Yeah,
Even if you're
looking
not of
forward to
age.
that. Even if you're not, I'm not of age, and he tried to get me on it, but I'm just not about that life.
It's also been confirmed that Gideon is going to 1v1 DK Chillin, Dean Kowalski, number 2 in Survivor Island of the Idols in a basketball match. Confirmed.
It is confirmed. I am gonna 1v1 Dean from Island of the Idols, Division 1 basketball player. I will be playing him in a basketball game, soon-ish, and he's gonna lose terribly. I am 5'9".
Confirmed. I don't
Yeah,
know if you can see it.
yeah,
You see
confirmed.
it? Confirmed. It's
I
happening.
see it.
And we're going to
He is
record it. It'll be on this channel. So subscribe so you do not miss that.
You do not want to miss me absolutely dunking on Dean. I am the heavy underdog in this basketball game, but it's not going to matter
Subscribe. Bye,
because
guys. Bye, guys.
I am
Bye,
I
everyone.
am
Have a
the
great night.
greatest of all time.